This is Coda Radio, episode 173 for October 5th, 2015. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us now, I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say, from the beautiful Florida state down where the Gators play. Why, yes, folks, it's Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Well, how you doing now there, Chris?
I got it right, didn't I?
You got it right this time.
I figure 50-50 shots. So how did your travels go okay? So both you and I were traveling since the last episode where we were on the air.
Well, let me tell you a little story about someone who missed a flight.
No.
And purchased, it gets better. So I don't travel with bags.
I noticed that from last week, yeah.
I just don't do that.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, can I just interject really quickly?
Go ahead.
I took the JB Rover, the trailer,
Sure.
and
Sure.
I didn't bring any bags either because, well, I was taking a trailer. So then when I got to Grand Forks, Noah put me up in a hotel, and I didn't have any bags. I didn't have, like, a bag for my laptop. I didn't have any bag for my clothes, so I had to carry all my stuff in by hands like an animal into the hotel. I didn't have any bags either.
So I just had a suit that I was wearing, by the way, because I was going to a wedding and I had some business meetings.
Gotta look good.
And a briefcase. That was it. Like, all I got.
So then you missed your flight.
Missed my flight, and I walk around the terminal about 3 times, which is crappier than it sounds because it's not all indoors and it's Florida and it's 1,000 degrees out.
Yeah.
And I purchase on my lovely iPhone 6 Plus a ticket for another flight, which I get my boarding pass immediately, right, because they email it to you now.
Sure.
And I purchase it and immediately walk into security. Well, apparently that's very suspicious.
Because you bought it there, right? And you're like...
within 5 minutes, I was in security, and I was stopped and taken to the side.
To me, just sounds exactly like something I would do, actually. See, that's what's really unfortunate about that being suspicious. And I can understand, like, how that is suspicious from, like, an analytics, like, a series of actions. And, they probably even got, the location you bought it from and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I was standing outside the security because there was no line.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm buying it on my phone. The guy's looking at me. I'm like, hang on. And I buy the ticket, and then I show him the boarding pass. And he's like, yeah... Okay.
But it also seems like obviously somebody would... I mean, that just seems like that's just taking advantage of modern technology.
Well, the question of, so you have no bags. And when I bought a one-way ticket, too. That's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I understand. So that's unfortunate. Did that cause you to miss the flight?
No, I made the second flight.
Okay.
Well, actually, so it gets better. When I had first got into the airport, I had went to the airline, Frontier, their desk, and said, I think I'm late for my flight. Here's the flight number. Any chance it was delayed? No, you're late. You missed your flight. Okay. Thanks a ton. It's non-refundable. I got that. Thank you.
Wow.
So, I get through security. I get searched, pretty much stripped naked. A little bit of a treat for the guard. We won't go into that. But, Jamal, this one's for you.
Wow. Yikes.
Get the hell out of here.
So anyway, I get through security, right? And now, because I had to buy a ticket on the spot, my flight's not taking off for like 2 hours. So there's a Chili's in the terminal.
Sure.
I'm like, you know what? I'm hungry. I order a martini. I'm about to order food.
So far, this is exactly how I would do it. This is totally my approach.
Within seconds of the girl putting the martini on the table or on the bar, do I hear, will Mr. Michael Dominic, passenger, please urgently come to gate C whatever?
No.
Like, oh, crap. I'm like, what now?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's the original flight, wondering where the hell I was. They had been delayed an hour and a half.
No way. You're telling me the whole time the flight was there, the whole time?
The whole time. So then I get to the gate, and I'm like, I have no boarding pass because the person at the desk told me I didn't, the flight had already taken off. And she's like, well, can I just see your ID and lets me right through? No boarding pass, no nothing.
Really?
Right on the plane.
Well, that's something.
So terrorists, if you ever want to...
No. Oh, man. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
It was hilarious.
My last day of travel was just a crazy 13-hour drive from Montana to Washington. We just went all out so that way we could make it back and see the kids early and stuff like that and get some work done.
Yeah, I was going to drive back, but I ended up flying back for reasons that will be revealed another day.
Oh, dun dun dun. Well, I wanted to start before we get too much further into the show. I'm going to start a weekly watch, if I remember, which I probably won't. Right here on the show, every week I'll check in and see what the status is for Marshmallow hitting my S6 Edge. But in the meantime,
I mean, really, shouldn't that be a monthly watch?
Probably, because as of today, as of this Coder Radio, Google has released Android 6.0 Marshmallow for Nexus 5, 6, 7, 9, and the Nexus Player. Yep, version 6.00 of Android is out, and we have download links directly in the show notes if you are so inclined. And I'm curious now to see how long until some of the other, I don't know, what do we call them? What are the upper tier Android devices supposed to be called?
The flagships?
Yes, thank you, the flagships. Now let's see how long until the flagships start to get...
your Nexus 5, although I have an update on mine, but I think it's just getting 5.
Oh, sure, the Nexus 5 I've let Noah use because he ruined his phone while he was out here. And now my only Android device now is my S6, and I just got 5.11.
Oh, well, that's a Samsung, dude. So can we just really quick, I know it's not on the dock, but take a detour?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Huawei? And I'm assuming that's how you actually say it.
Yeah, I think it is how you say it.
Because it's like a Hua, right?
Yeah, yep.
The 6P, because I'm,
yeah.
I probably wouldn't be one to buy a Huawei phone, but I might, actually.
So this is weird because now there's been bad news about Huawei. But it's like, how do you even know what's legit and not? Because they're...
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like a total trust deficit there.
Yeah. But here's my take on it: is I think they actually make some good stuff.
It's a lot. I mean, I was all hot and bothered for what is it, the Moto Pure, but this is looking like hardware wise like a nicer phone.
And also what about Xiaomi? I mean, when's Xiaomi gonna start making stuff out here in the U.S. and they're also very competitive with the design and the looks.
I don't think they have any plans. So I know Huawei has been talking about wanting to come to the U.S.
Yeah, and they have been and. There's been some supposedly malware shipped to some of their devices and things like that. They got some bad
so that's
press.
the thing. They have a bad habit of
maybe working with the Chinese government is the implication. Don't really know though.
I mean,
that's of course the implication from the U.S. government.
If the Chinese government wants to see the inappropriate stuff I throw into Slack, right. I think they'll never spy on my phone again after that.
Yeah, right.
Let's just say we're big fans of the TV program Oz and just leave it at that.
So you're back on the iPhone, huh? So you're not rocking Android, the Moto 360
after
anymore?
We got off the show where I talked about having not broken my Nexus, I immediately shattered it.
So then there goes the Moto 360 too, right? I mean, you can't use Android Wear, or can you? I guess Android Wear is.
It's super not great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I guess it does.
I haven't been wearing it with the iPhone, but I've been in the market for an Android phone, and I had literally the cursor on the buy button, and I said, you know what? Let me wait for the new Nexus line to come out. And now I'm like, I don't like that 5X. I would just almost rather go to one of those shady screen repair places.
I think the 5X looks kind of appealing.
I think it looks kind of crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like jumping out at me. It's not, but it is. Right. There's things that are appealing to it.
But that 6P looks really good. But there's the whole shadiness. Is this going to be part of the botnet that attacks the DoD?
I doubt it, though. I doubt it. I think that's overplayed. I really do. I think it's overplayed. I think there's other market competitive dynamics at play that maybe have started some of those rumors. That's perhaps
wait. Are you saying one company would lie about another company
potentially
and start a rumor to scare them?
I think my next phone. I think I'm good for a bit. To be honest with you, it's not really in the cards for me at the moment.
Well, are we announcing the iOS action show?
Hey, you never know. You just never know. I still am beginning to think that I'm not beginning. I still maintain that I think of the two. I think iOS is a more consistent experience with more frequent updates, easier for developers to target, and better applications exist for it. And I think the hardware is actually pretty good too. The only problem I have with it. What?
Wow.
What? I'm just saying.
I spent half of last week in Android Studio debugging an issue that only exists in one region on one version of Android.
So this has been. I was asked this last week, why is there no hyperlapse out for Android? And I got to think about it, and I thought, well, it's probably because it's much easier to use an application to write an application like that with the iPhone. It's just got to be easier, right? And it's not even that it's the right answer. It's just practically easier. And that just probably all it really takes to get more developers to do that than...
But, as a developer, so this issue, you have no idea how foolish it seems to, test it on 5 phones and be like, dude, there's no issue. And I had to set up a special emulator for that specific, point whatever version.
Really?
To even prove out that the client was right.
Ooh.
And then I had to go back, yeah, you were right. And I have no idea, so it's going to take forever to fix this one dumb thing on this one dumb version.
That is annoying. And
the fix is super hacky.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see perhaps, if you're given a choice, shying away.
So let's talk about, while we're talking about debugging things, let's talk about this first story here, how basically our friends at Patreon, where we get a lot of support for the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, they made the mistake, if I'm following the story correctly, of leaving debug mode on their web app.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
They were being super lean and super agile. That's all they did. They're fine.
Oh.
When you're that agile, you don't have time to hit the recompile. And
oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Sure.
I don't believe you.
And when you're testing on your users, of course you want the debug flag on.
Yeah, so we don't really know how long. Okay, so here's how I understand the sequence of events went. Somebody discovered this and said, hey, this might be an issue. And then very quickly after that, it was published that Patreon looked into it and they discovered, yes, somebody did get access through this.
Yeah.
So it sounds like somebody disclosed it to them. They did an investigation, and in that process of the investigation, they announced that the password that contains usernames and email addresses of patrons, so people who support, which is encrypted, which is pretty solid if you listen to Mr. Jude, that's been leaked. But probably even more damaging for content creators is EINs and social securities and private messages, which I don't really think anybody really uses the private message system on Patreon. And then there's something else that was leaked, and how much content creators are getting paid, which is actually I actually hope that gets looked at a little more, because I'll guarantee you it is not the number that is showed on the Patreon website. It's much lower. And because, not only you see that number on that Patreon website, that number is assuming every card on file processes, which...
Right. And to be clear, I'm not super familiar with Patreon, so what are you saying? What number are we talking about here?
So when you go to say you go to patreon.com/today, that's where we try to raise funding for all of the Jupiter Broadcasting shows. We pay production staff out of there, we do hardware, it's hardware replacements out of there. It's like the bread and butter of keeping the shows floating. And so that's crowdfunded. So that way we can be super flexible with our sponsors, and we can say no thank you or goodbye without completely ruining the company. And the idea is the more that grows there, the more funding and growth the company does organically. As the audience support grows, the content grows. And the number that it represents there is assuming that every account clears for that month, which, as you know, if anybody has ever tried to process payments, that never happens. And it's before tax, and it's before Patreon gets their percentage.
Okay, so I'm looking at your page now for Tech Talk Today.
Yeah, at patreon.com/. Well, it's actually for the whole network, but I made it at Tech Talk Today sort of like a thank you show that's sponsored by the patrons.
So I would think that JB nets $4,000 out of this.
Right. Right. But now you can, if you go look, it could actually be half that number.
Half?
I don't know. I actually don't know, but I know at times it has been in the past. Now, it's not always, I don't think, because it'll depend on if there's a payment issue or something like that. But yeah, it can be dramatically different than that number. No, I don't know what it is actually, because I don't follow that. Angela does, but it's definitely not that.
So you have to do. I mean, is it just like if I take a sale through PayPal, I have to.
Right. Well, because in a lot of cases, people are actually paying with PayPal too. So then there's the PayPal cut as well. Now, but the nice thing about Patreon is they can aggregate, I believe, that. So they average it out across the content creators in a sense. Do you follow what I'm saying? So because I'm not actually doing the payment processing, they are, which is actually nice. It actually saves me a little bit. But it just kind of depends. So that also was leaked as part of this, and I don't think that was bcrypt protected for some reason. I think the passwords and the user database stuff was bcrypt protected, but the other stuff wasn't necessarily. And some source code to the website also, I believe, was posted.
Oh, yeah.
All in all, it was like a 4 gigabyte tar GZ file that you could download.
So, first of all, wow about the fees. I didn't know that.
Well, if you think about it, all payment systems work like that, right?
Yeah, but so it sounds like they're stacking fees, though.
Well, it's more like you have the payment processing. You have people whose cards that don't clear. That's that's another one. That's another thing that significantly contributes to that number. Or people will set limits on how much they can pay, and so they'll donate to, say, Tom Merritt and Brian Brushwood, and by the time there can be a set limit. So the number is they've committed $3 a month, but by the time their limits are reached, they're only actually contributing $1 a month.
I get it. Okay, so it's not all fees. It's
there is some of it's fees, some of it's it's a range, and then
so it's the normal like e-commerce garbage, basically.
Yeah, and it seems in my estimation of summing it up, it seems pretty fair. It's just what it is.
Okay, so this was an interesting story to me because basically it's a Flask app, right? For people who don't know, that's a Python app. It's very if you know Rails, Rails is to Django as Flask is to maybe Sinatra or Padrino, but I think Sinatra is a little more of a, it's a lightweight framework, right? And they just left the debug flag on, which is interesting in that it's such a small mistake. Like, I mean, for internal things, I can't tell you how many times I've quickly left a debug flag on and then had to go back and change it. But it's just interesting how much data is simply leaked by having that flag on. Right?
So on Sunday, I covered a story by Akamai, the CDN people.
Sure.
And they're talking about this epidemic of a Linux botnet, and it's Linux being compromised, and the botnet is so powerful it can direct over 150 gigabits of denial of service at a target, and it does.
That's crap, though.
But what it was is people were using weak SSH passwords, and so
they're using garbage SSH passwords, or it could be the software platform they're using on Linux.
But it's but again, it's the same thing. It's like such a simple mistake of somebody who doesn't fully understand what they're doing, setting up a system on the internet, and then in this case it was a debug flag, in another case it's a simple SSH password, and all of a sudden it just that one little oversight, and it's too late. They've seen everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it brings into the question, should you really be managing all this infrastructure yourself, right? If you don't, I wouldn't even want to go as far as to say know what you're doing, because it is really, really easy, to forget to change a config file, right?
Do you think, too, if you are designing an application or a site that's taking payments, and this sounds something, it's one thing to say, but to actually get this done, do you think... Is it incumbent upon the people creating that application or site to have it audited by a penetration tester, maybe somebody that would look for these kinds of mistakes? I mean, that's easy to say, but when you're a couple of people making a site and you're doing it by your bootstraps, not always easy. What do you think?
I mean, in a world where money didn't matter and every project had $1 million budget, sure. But in the real world, no, I don't think that's necessary. I think this is a case of, Patreon is, I'm not into it, but I know that they're very successful, right? I mean, they came out of nowhere. And
they're answering a niche. I mean, they're
right. And I would just, gently posit that maybe their success and their growth outstripped their internal processes, right? When no one cares about your website or your app or whatever, you can be a little more cowboy with it, right? You can be a little more screw it, we'll do it live, whatever.
I definitely got the sense talking to them that they were working super super hard and super fast, and I think I think you just nailed it.
Yeah, I'm not. See, that's the thing. I've seen some stuff on Reddit that people are like, "This is just gross incompetence," or whatever. I don't think it's incompetence. I think it's just, yes, it's dumb, right? It's a mistake. Mistakes happen, but hopefully, let's say the one guy did this. Firing that guy would be insane because he's never going to forget a debug flag again, right? He probably
that's
so much crap.
Yeah, I mean, they might fire him just, I don't know, who knows, because they almost have to as a business, but yeah, you're right, talk about a lesson learned.
When you fire someone for making a mistake, you're only absorbing the mistake and then
right.
Their next employer gets the advantage of what they learned from the time. I mean, really, unless it was he intentionally did it for someone to steal, but
it doesn't sound like it. I mean, this is
it doesn't sound like any actual credit card numbers were really compromised.
How much is this? No, I just got to put this out there. How much is this to blame on the fact that it's sort of set it and forget it type web app? And, when you use these kinds... Well, no, not completely, but sorry, you said it was based on Flask, right? The Python...
Yeah, it's a Python Flask, yeah.
So am I misunderstanding, or is this sort of like something out of the box that they use to set up the basic frameworks of a web application?
Okay, but...
when you want something out of the magic box...
Your definition of set it and forget it now applies to ASP, ASP.NET, Rails, Sinatra. Flask is a much thinner framework than Rails.
Okay, that's what I was curious, is how much it provides and how much, yeah. Then that makes sense to me, too. I was just curious because it seems like sometimes, in some cases, I've seen people deploy things in a way that they just sort of take all of the defaults, and that's just one of the default things. But if that's something they had to write in there by hand, then that makes sense.
Obviously, when you're using... I don't want to get into the testing conversation, but certainly there could have been some automated test system. I'm not a big Python guy, but I could see a Jenkins server running in the sky that one of the tests it ran is, does debug flag equal true, whatever it is in Python, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is where Python knowledge is limited. And it says, your debug flag does equal true, and deployment failed, send a note, right? Because Slack, HipChat, all of that allow you to, you could have a little channel that's like, hey, jackass, deployment failed.
You know what makes me wonder? Renegade Dev just made me think about this in the chat room. Doesn't this suggest that they are debugging and deploying in production too, which is a very dangerous practice?
I don't think it necessarily suggests that. It suggests that their deployment process is too manual. That's what it suggests to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, and to be fair, during dev time, my deployment process is super manual, right? It's Git. It's Doku.
You never know. Maybe the problem was they moved over their testing or dev image. They deployed from testing or dev and they had it turned on.
They could have changed server vendors. It could have been...
Yeah.
There's a million things that could have happened that are silly.
So in some ways, it also, though, is good because we now know they're using bcrypt, which is nice. And so
which is much more than a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
To their credit.
And so the question is, does this now for Patreon become like a calling to them to make sure that this system is shored up and it never happens again? And if that's the case, then long term this could be a somewhat beneficial thing for them because they got caught with their pants down and they didn't have any STDs. They looked like they were pretty clean. Okay, we saw their wang, but now their pants are back on. And as long as those pants never fall down again, now we know. We know they got good, clean junk, and we can kind of have faith that they're going to continue to protect that data. The other thing I think is saving grace is they didn't have any credit card or payment info on file.
First of all, as disasters go, this really isn't that bad, right? No financial information was leaked, or at least unencrypted. In my mind, this kind of thing is a pure disaster recovery. You're already in the hole, so really all you can do is get better.
Mm-hmm. The irony is, the people that are best off right now are those of you who are using Facebook to log in.
You trade some things for others.
I know, but what's funny is if you are using your Facebook login, not only did your credentials not get compromised, but you very likely could have two-factor turned on as well, so Patreon would be a two-factor authenticated site for you. It's just kind of funny how that works.
Well, and that's the whole pitch.
Not saying I would do it, but
Facebook's a one ID thing, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, Google has it, Firefox has it. I still think Persona's better, but I lost that fight.
Womp womp. All right, well, let me take a moment and tell you about a fight you can win. That's your education over at linuxacademy.com. I mean it. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go check it out. That's where you're going to get the Coder Radio discount, and it is going to be worth more than ever. linuxacademy.com/coders. I'd like you to go check them out. They have over 1,800 self-paced courses. But something I don't really emphasize enough in these spots, and something I probably should because it really makes Linux Academy stand out, is you can get instructor help with those self-paced courses. And that's pretty rare and unique. And now think about Linux Academy as a platform built around Linux and open source technologies to make sure you can learn and get the most out of them. And they have over 1,800 self-paced courses with downloadable comprehensive study guides and lab servers that spin up on demand when you need them with 7+ Linux distributions you get to choose from. And at any point in that self-paced course, real human being instructor help is available to you. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go check them out. Also, I'm just going to put that little teaser out there because it's October 5th as we record the Coder Radio program. Coming up on October 15th, there's going to be a major show over at Linux Academy. I'm going to tell you more about it later, but it's the result of a dream they've had. Just about this time last year, they've been working on it for a year, and they're really excited to announce it. They also have a brand new HTML5 player and a beefed up CDN on the back end to make sure all of the content streams super fast to you. You got to go check it out over at linuxacademy.com right now because they've also rolled out a new control panel. It looks really slick, and they're really proud of it. So a lot of new features over at Linux Academy, and the biggest yet to be announced on October 15th. Now is a better time than ever to become a member, and you can get our Coder Radio discount and support the Coder Radio show by going to linuxacademy.com/coders. Check out the nuggets, too, so just when you have a little bit of time, you're not ready to go into one of the deep dive courses. These nuggets go between like 2 and 60 minutes, and they go into a singular topic really deep. And I think that's a brilliant idea. They also have availability selectors, so you can tell the system, well, geez, I've got a couple hours on Tuesday, couple hours on Thursday, and I can do about 4 or 5 hours on Saturday. You know, just you could go nuts, and you could just, if you could even just commit that much time, just that much time, you would be amazed at all of the content you could pick up over at Linux Academy. And the thing is, if that's kind of how your structure works, they have content generators that can boop, 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 boop. That's the computer automatically generating that S for you. They just fill that all out, and boom, you got a courseware. linuxacademy.com/coders. Red Hat, Linux, Python, OpenStack, Android, DevOps, all of the good things around the Linux stack that not only make you money, but are also just rewarding to know and understand. linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Okay, Mr. Dominic, now get ready for this one. This one was floated up by the Coder Radio subreddit this week, and it was written up over at Infoworld.com, and it comes from an insider, oh yes, we love those, who says that Oracle has lost all interest in Java.
Whoa, Deep Throat coming out hard. All right.
Yeah, right? Exactly. New sources with an S, are stepping up to question about Oracle's stewardship of the Java development platform. So
when I read the article, let me ask you this. Did you picture like some dark parking garage in California? You know, somebody with Java Duke on his dashboard, meeting another guy from InfoWorld, trench coats.
For some reason, too, like they're both kind of like boxy cars from the 80s. I don't know exactly why.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it's Charlie Sheen and the guy who played Jordan Gecko.
And they're in
80s.
a darker area of the parking lot where maybe one of the fluorescent light tubes is out, and
Charlie Sheen's hand is shaking. He's like, man, they're going to get me.
Right, and it's just because he needs a caffeine fix, because, you know, Java.
Well, or tiger's blood.
Oh, right, okay. So in an email sent to InfoWorld on Tuesday by a former high-ranking Java official claimed to feature details from inside Oracle. It said the company was becoming a cloud company, competing with Salesforce, and it has, this is a quote, Java has no interest in them anymore. The subject cited Java, planned obsolescence. Do you think maybe Oracle's sitting there going like, Java's the next Flash. We got to prepare for this before everybody else does. The email suggests that JCP members push open letters to Oracle customers to warn them what is being done to Java. Oracle, the email said, will never cooperate with any Java foundation and will not release its IP. Java, though, has been open source for nearly 9 years. When contacted by InfoWorld, Oracle chose not to comment on these allegations.
No comment.
Yikes. So the narrative here is that passionate employees inside Oracle are fighting for the future of Java by going directly to the media to expose Oracle's plans to sunset Java.
All right. So let's get your reaction first, Chris.
Okay. My reaction to the story itself, or my reaction to if Java is being...
All right, so... You know,
because I got two different reactions. I don't know
which one. Do you buy it, right? Like, do you buy the premise?
Well, I could see it, but no, I do not buy it. I do not buy it, and I'll tell you why. Because if Oracle was planning the obsolescence of Java, and then these people came out and started to say, hey, they're going to obsolescence Java, then if I was Oracle, what I would turn around and say, yes, that's correct. We have a 2-year plan.
That would never happen. No way.
Why not? Why not just be like, yeah, you know what? You know what? We are going to sunset it. Yeah, we were going to announce it soon, and we're still working on the details. But yeah, that's happening. Start preparing yourselves now. Like, you want to make sure you get the word out? Now it's been done. Job's done. So I don't see. So if Oracle really was going to see, this is what I'm saying though. If Oracle was really going to end of life Java, then it being outed that they're going to end of life Java isn't going to derail that. Like, it gets you nothing, because if you're going to kill the product, people are going to find out eventually anyways. So what do you really accomplish by outing the fact that you're going to kill the product? Obviously that was going to come out. So I don't really buy the whole premise to begin with, because it doesn't really accomplish much as an insider.
Right. I don't buy the ragtag group of heroic Java Duke supporters here. Right. But I also don't buy the premise, because, okay, you're Oracle. you're going to kill. So first of all, what does that even mean, right? Because they can't kill Java. It's like a zombie. You can slow it down, you can put it in a cage, but can you really kill it?
I mean, it's sort of like I guess they have the intellectual property is what this article is pulling out.
Yeah, but okay, so then there's a year or two where, and I'm going to get some hate for this, but frankly, Oracle's Java is better than the Java open source one, right?
But let's say this did happen. Wouldn't Google just double down behind the open source Java and
that's what I'm saying. Forget Google. Wouldn't everybody do that?
Right, but Google would lead the way. Google would lead the way. It would be a done
Google
deal.
and Red Hat would be hand in hand.
Yes.
Right?
Sure. I mean, a lot of companies would. Microsoft might even decide to get on that just to help influence the direction a bit.
Yeah, they tried that once.
Yeah. No, that didn't.
Okay, so look, I have a crazy theory.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to say the big M here, so people get your mute and your hate mail ready.
Oh man, I'm not prepared for a big M.
Microsoft has been doing an excellent job of really making C# look sexy, be engaged with the development community.
Right. I see where you're going.
And, I'm not really a C# developer, but I'm like, damn, am I missing something? Like C#'s moving, there's Roslyn, there's all this stuff. I can't go a week without some really interesting article about what Microsoft's doing.
It doesn't really matter though, because the thing that Java has going for it is that install base and that momentum. So
No, I don't. In practical terms, it doesn't matter at all, right? But I have a feeling that what some people might be sensing is that Oracle is, I don't want to use the word stagnate, but they're willing to consider Java mature, right?
Well, and I mean, I don't know if this is a factor either, but if I'm sitting at Java, or if I'm sitting at Oracle and I'm looking at our Java situation, and I think, you know what I always see in the headlines? Java runtime environment, JRE execution flaw, blah, 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 point of entry, this malware was spread to these reactors because of Java. Like, it's constantly a security liability for them as well. And now I realize there's lots of different types of Java, but I'm just saying from like a maybe
what year is it? When?
What, really? You don't see that all the time now?
No more than like Rails vulnerability or Jackass has left a debug flag on.
But here's my point: is if they are truly transitioning to a cloud company or a platform company, this is like one of the most client-sidey kind of down in the trenches, constantly having to muck around with pieces of software out there. I mean, I'm just trying to look at it from another perspective. Like if Oracle is truly trying to transition, if that's a legitimate statement, then I could see how Java. Well,
I don't.
At least Java on the desktop.
But no one cares about the desktop.
That's what I mean, right? I could see them phasing that out.
No, I mean I didn't even consider that, but yeah, okay, sure. I mean, let's not get too much into the hype here, right? All cloud means is servers that aren't in your room.
Right. It just means they're gonna label something as some sort of like maybe some sort of like Oracle services on demand that they probably already offer for a ridiculous fee.
But so let's say they come out with a new magical platform called Larry Ellison Cloud.
Yeah, I love it. The Ellison Cloud.
It's called the L Cloud. I like it. It would be insane not to have that be developable in Java.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the Java is the big one I guess JavaScript is more now.
No, that's a fair point though.
Right, one of the biggest programming, and by the way, it's still faster than let's say Ruby or Python.
That pretty much seals the deal right there. I mean, that's so obvious. If they're going to do a cloud oh my gosh.
Why would it not be in Java?
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe, devil's advocate, maybe Java the platform, and Scala is a first-class citizen, and Java's just like co-equal, kind of like C# and F# for Microsoft, right?
That would be at worst, I would think.
Right. This sounds crazy. Now, I would believe that Oracle is backing off from the actual development of the language, or plans to, little bit.
Yeah, and says it's reached maturity.
Because they make no money on it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And you have this great open source foundation who will do it for you if you let them.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I mean, that's very true, Mr. Dominic. Yeah, the premise doesn't really hold up. Now watch us be wrong on this one.
I mean, I would love to be wrong, only to see like what material effect that has on the industry, and I think the answer is virtually nothing.
Mm-hmm. I gotta imagine.
I mean, how many people are still running Java 6?
You know what I want to know? Really? How many people out there still using Microsoft Java? The one that
J Sharp.
Yeah, well, what was their? I forget what their little package was called. You had to download from Windows Update. Oh my gosh,
so bad. Oh, no, wait, J Sharp or J Plet? There was something stupid.
Yeah, J something and then there was the Microsoft Java run. Yeah, it was all right. Well, why don't we take a moment and we have a big email to get to, but first I want to thank DigitalOcean, the next sponsor on the Coda Radio program. Now, DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to get your own rig up in the cloud, really on super fast hardware. In fact, they just announced a new data center in Toronto, up in Canada. So if you want to store your data up in the Great White North, this is the place to do it, because each hypervisor becomes equipped with a 40 gigabit connection. 40 gigabit each. It's 40. Look, oh my gosh. And their latest and greatest SSDs. You combine those two things, all running on top of KVM using Linux on the back end, and then DigitalOcean's simple, intuitive interface. That's amazing. But if you use our promo code CODERDIGITAL, you're going to get a $10 credit. That's CODERDIGITAL. It's one word, lowercase, $10 credit. And their base rig starts at $5 a month. So you could try out the base rig for 2 months for free. No credit card required. CODERDIGITAL. You get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. It's all sitting on top of SSD drives. So as you step up in the line, if you need more horsepower, you just get more and more speed, and more storage capacity, all more transfer, more CPUs. It's very, very straightforward and logical. They also have a really nice API for you to work with, and this could be something that you work with and create your own application or something around it, or you could take advantage of some of the stuff already out there by the community. Like, I'm going to point you out to this DigitalOcean command line interface. It's an interface that provides a shell to access your droplets. So that way you could go in there and power cycle them. You could destroy a droplet, get its status or information, get your basic account information out of there. You could create a droplet from existing images, list your droplets, do a snapshot, things like that. It's written in Python, and it is a shell for your DigitalOcean website. If you don't want to go to the very, very well designed website, I just like that a lot. There's a lot of different projects out there. They just use the API. It's really cool. They have a ton of great documentation. So use the promo code CODERDIGITAL and go build yourself something neat. They also have one-click deployment of applications. So you can get up and started with a lot of really well-known applications like GitLab and Ghost, and Ruby on Rails, and all. Or in fact, when I say Ruby on Rails, it makes me think of the fact that you could actually just deploy an entire Ubuntu server with the web stack ready to go with one click. They have a lot of great distributions you can choose from, and I also recommend you play with CoreOS a bit. I think it's a really cool concept. They work with the CoreOS project to get latest images on there. And there's also FreeBSD available over at DigitalOcean.com. Just use that promo code CODERDIGITAL to support our show and get yourself a $10 credit. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coda Radio program. Okay, Mr. Dominic, you just see this?
Hang on, Chris. Hang on.
Yeah,
I have to reboot for a second. My JDirect install powered by the Microsoft Java virtual machine needs an update.
Yeah, first you got to update the MSI installer. Then you can.
I don't think there was an MSI.
no, not until the very end. So
we're on 97 here.
Jacob sent us. I mean, this is a wowzy, a doozy. I guess is what we're supposed to say, a doozy. So he needs a solution for upgrading his computers constantly, and I feel for this. So he says, I'm a long-time listener, first time writing with a question. I'm a developer. I currently live in relatively happily in Australia, where we have ADSL2. Both at home with 17 megabits shared by 2 people, and at work 7 megabits shared by 9 people. Now, here's the thing. Like many developers, I have many computers and virtual machines. I have an iMac at home as the main workstation, a MacBook Pro for work on the go, Arch Linux running on the Mac Mini as a file media server, and Ubuntu PC as a VM lab. I also have an iMac at work, and a VM that the company uses to load all the dev environments, a Surface Pro 3 for Windows and C# development. Also, not to mention, I have an iPad, an Nexus 5, an iPhone, an LG Watch R. My frustration is keeping all these things up to date, and it's driving me crazy. Boy, do I hear you. I'm a power user, and I've tried my best to simplify my life. Not to laugh at you, Jacob, but if you compare that statement to the previous paragraph, I just had to laugh a little bit. So he says, my frustration is keeping all these things.
Here.
I know, right? He says, I have a hard time keeping them all updated. I'm a power user. I'm trying to simplify my life. He says, I use a repository to sync all my settings, keys, and configurations, aka my .dot files, using Git. But he doesn't like, he says, I mentioned BitTorrent Sync. Didn't work. Wrote a script to update all packages like Homebrew, pip, gem, npm from a terminal on all the Macs. This saved me a lot of time when I'm trying to keep everything updated. However, this does not solve a lot of other things. Just a quick example. Not all things can be upgraded from the terminal, and random things will always just pop up and ask for an update. For example, iTurn 2 sometimes pops up and asks for an update. I have to do it on every single computer, and if it's not the identical environment, Macs are better than Windows, it seems. I get problems each time. I need to manually diagnose them to figure out why. My download speed is terrible bad, especially in the office, and I also need to keep other Macs in the office up to date, and keeping all the devices up to date can take about 20% of my time, and I'm not sure what the better solution is. Should I just leave them there and schedule to manually do them? He says maybe I could have some sort of habit, and maybe, he says, am I taking the wrong route here? Should I use all Linux machines with things like Puppet installed? To be honest, I've even considered MS Active Directory. I know, I was crazy. As that would solve the problem of being able to automatically deploy updates and applications from a central location. Thanks, looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Jacob. And I wanted to add one more thing to this, because not only have I sort of felt his pain, but over the last 2 weeks, I was doing it all over cellular connectivity.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just, it is really, I mean.
Did you even have LTE?
No, not most of the time, no. Or I was at a campsite with really bad Wi-Fi, 70% packet loss.
All right, so I have a confession. I just gave up on this whole problem.
I kind of have in a sense, I have some machines I don't bother, and then some machines I update all the time.
Yeah. I have my one MacBook Pro, that's my everything machine. It has a Fedora, whatever the newest one is, VM, that I occasionally do some development in because I'm still toying with what I'm going to get next when this one finally needs to be put out to pasture. But yeah, it just got too crazy. I mean, especially once you throw Windows machines into the mix, it's like,
and that's not even counting all the application updates like on the smartphones and yeah. So obviously, I mean, the obvious answer is don't have so much crap.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like that works for him, because he probably would have already done that.
You're not gonna find a solution that's gonna work for the Mac machines and the Windows machines, right?
Yeah, don't use Active Directory. Windows WSUS having to update your that's just, it's a whole job just to manage that thing.
I mean, I would almost say, depending on how beastly your Mac is, can you just VM everything? Probably not.
Yeah, more VMs might be good, but you still have to update the VMs themselves.
You have to update the VM, right?
Yeah, and that's oof. So my solution has been I just, on most of my machines, I don't avoid the updates. I just do them much less often, and I just sort of consolidate that time. So what came out, OS 10 El Cap came out, right? And the Macs here in the studio are still on 10.9, right? I now maybe I will go around and update them all at once. Now, the Arch machines I do tend to update more often, but I just kind of do that in another terminal window while I'm working on them. It's not as an involved process. It doesn't really require much of my interaction. So in some sense, it's the Linux machines I find to be easier to update because I can just opt to do that in a terminal window that I minimize, and then it just does it all in the background because I do -- no confirm like a boost. And then for we don't have any Windows machines, so I don't ever worry about that.
I know you, and I have never had to pronounce this out loud. Darkresny? I hope that's correct. Darkresny?
I call him Darsani.
Oh, that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
C's before the R. WebYast or FreePO. The problem is I don't think any of this stuff is going to work on Windows, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I would not go with Windows for this kind of, because Windows, I mean, you could just got to set the Windows updates to be automatic on the Windows boxes. It's not that bad anymore.
So I haven't even updated to El Cap because in fact, I waited a month or whatever it was, 3 weeks to update Xcode because I'm Darkresny. Thank you. I'm super Darkresny. Goddamn. I'm super paranoid about updates now, especially 0.0 updates. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, I made the very, very big mistake of right on the road trip. So I brought the S6 Edge and I brought an iPhone, 2 different networks, right?
Sure.
And I did the iPhone 6, just the slim 5.7, whatever. No, not whatever the small one is, the 4.7 or whatever it is. I don't care. I did the update to iOS 9.0 on that thing.
What a mistake!
It was the performance fell through the floor. It became laggy, and let me tell you something. Honestly, it still was faster than my S6, and I'm not joking. It's still, and that actually pissed me off. Because the whole other side story, I spent a half hour one night just going through the S6 trying to disable boot apps, and I've got the boot time down now to 1 minute 30 seconds, which is pretty damn good on that phone, and I think I can get it down a little more than that. But it's still okay, I'm not kidding you. The pin code, when the phone first turns on, or if it's been in deep sleep for a while, no joke. the system is so laggy on the S6 entering in the PIN code that the screen falls asleep before it's done registering I get to like, so the PIN code on my phone, just spoiler alert because I was using it for a hotspot, was 1234. I usually use the fingerprint, but for the road trip, I just put 1234. Before press number 4 gets registered, the screen falls asleep. That's how slow the S6 runs for me sometimes. Is the frickin' screen falls asleep when I'm trying to unlock it because it's so slow. So the iPhone slows down a little bit, just a little bit, and it was maddening. Like the unstable, the app switcher was stuttery, and then they issued 2 freaking updates while I was on the road. 2 updates to the OS.
This was like a 7-day period.
Yes, and it's astonishing. And so I'm sitting there downloading these updates and I'm trying to get all my machines running. And it was, Jacob, I felt your pain during this time. And
but are we cranky old men now? Like there was a time. We
have been wronged too many times, Mr. Dominic, and now I just do it less.
I was downloading Ubuntu like betas, and I was doing all that crap, and now I'm like,
not for me. No, and here's the thing about that is I'll sit back and wait a little bit till like they get to the right point, and now I'm jumping in. I'm just being a little more reserved. I shouldn't have done the .0 update, but I just thought, well, I'm probably not going to have a chance to update again on the road, so I might as well just play around with it because I want to have fun. It was a horrible mistake. And so Jacob, my walking out of that experience is about once a month now. I'm going to update my stuff. Now, my Arch boxes, like I said, I keep them more current. But the other stuff, once a month, I'll just apply updates, and I'll just make it like a routine process that I go through. And that's my solution. And that involves my phones and my watches and any other crap that I might have that has to connect it out to the internet and give somebody my IP address and check for updates. Just a nice, methodic approach. What about you, Mr. Dominic?
I do not update my production machine, which is currently the only machine I use, unless I have to.
Yeah, there's machines here that
or I take it back, unless it would be irresponsible not to do the update.
Yeah, like the broadcast machine here, I don't update unless I absolutely have to. Like if the broadcast vendor of the software requires me to update, that's when I update.
So let's take just a real simple case, right? Sometimes OS X updates like to break things I install via Homebrew.
And they often like to break things like USB sound devices and cameras as well.
See, I have no knowledge of that at all.
Just from the production end,
So, but I have a lot of like build scripts. Then all of a sudden things don't work, and I end up in Bash RC land. And I feel like when I'm there, I've already lost, right? Like, unless I'm initially setting up the workflow, if I'm going back and having to like relink things. Now, sometimes it's as simple as like OS X wiped out your Bash RC or your Bash profile, right? When it updated. So you just, go to, I keep mine on GitHub. So you go to GitHub and you copy paste and everything's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes they move things, which gets really weird. Updating Xcode can cause all kinds of weird problems because now libc or libgcc is sometimes not included.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to go separately install the command line tools. And if you already have your stuff set up and you do that again later, every once in a while, we don't notice that it's there and there's a problem.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, upgrading is something I like to do on a Friday when I've already delivered whatever I need to deliver.
Yeah, yep.
And worst case scenario, I can work a little bit on Saturday and kind of, to be honest, I'm getting to the point where I'd almost rather pave, and every time there's a major update, just because it's really once a year, right?
So you take the broadcast machine here, which is always the one we're really delicate with. The only time I've even done updates on this machine, the last time I did them was we took like a week off around Christmas, gave everybody the week off, and I spent that week doing the upgrades to the broadcast machine because I knew I had a week of no shows. And so even though it was during Christmas, that was like the only time to do those updates. So I was in the studio doing the updates on that machine because I knew I didn't have a show the next morning. Otherwise, there's pretty much never a time where there's not going to be a show just around the corner that it would, if you break it during an upgrade, you take out the show.
Yeah, like I won't do an update mid-project.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's nuts.
Noah often for critical, one of the things he does, and we'll do it sometimes here for studio equipment too, is he builds a parallel system and then does the switch over to that system and leaves the original system basically right next to it where you just take the cords and switch over.
Right.
And so so it's sort of essentially a nuke and pave, but it's a nuke and pave because it's an entirely new machine. He sets everything up again And then, that sometimes there are sometimes like little things here that when you have a new machine, you have to go back and like there's a lot of little things you have to go still set. But the core functionality verified working, you switch over to it. And then if something goes wrong, you can switch right back to the other one. And then after a couple of weeks, you phase out the backup. And that's a very expensive way to do it. But when you use something like VMs, it's a little more practical.
Right. If you're, I know people who just do development in VMs.
Oh, yeah. We've gotten emails from guys that do their entire workday inside VMs on their work machine. Like they boot up their work machine and they boot up their VM where they have their environment they like to work in.
Which, to be honest, if you're doing Windows dev, kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's just me. I've always had a harder time maintaining a Windows box than a Mac or even a Linux box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say one of the most common things I've heard, just because probably the skew of our audience is. They're running like an Ubuntu VM because they do like all their work and web browsing in that VM, and then we have at meetups we have people that bring their laptops, and almost universally they're like these huge monsters, and a lot of times there's a whole bunch of different VMs that they have running on there, and they just get what people do is they get like Bonobo class laptops and they run a lot of VMs, and that's how they do it. And for them, it's a much more because then at least you go to one spot to do your updates. And you have snapshots and things like that. And it's getting fast enough these days where if you're not really doing anything that requires a lot of 3D, it's pretty usable. See, JB Haka-Truth. JB Haka-Truth says, I'm always in a VM for dev work. I'm confident, and I can confidently break things. So without horrible consequences. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, Mr. Dominic, is there anything else we want to cover today?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, it's good to be back at JB1 and chat with you. It's good to have you back in Florida. Sorry to hear about the travel mishaps. I'll give you a pro tip. Road trips. No TSA. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, just state troopers in all 50 states, sure.
In Wyoming and Montana, I'm not joking, I didn't see a single cop on the road. I get back to Washington, they're like flies on, well, you know what. Oh, listen.
Well, who's going to do anything in Wyoming?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Really.
The speed limits are 80 miles per hour, so who's going to get you for what?
Over 80, you already have problems.
JupiterBroadcasting.com/contact to email us, coderadio.reddit.com for pretty much everything else. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of Coda Radio. See you right back here next week.